right, I'll call us to order. Minnehaha Creek Watershed District Board of Managers is now in order, and on Thursday, September 25th, 2025. All managers are present, Manager Hejmati attending remotely. I see no members of the public. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I just want to point out that we have added number 15 for closed sessions, and I wanted to thank Manager Loftus for the suggestion. Requires no amendments that way. So could I have a motion to approve? Roll call. Attendance, right? Okay, attendance. Manager Hejmati.
Aye.
Manager Miller.
Aye.
Sando.
Aye.
Loftus.
Here and I.
Olson.
Present.
White present.
Here.
Maxwell. All right. We are all present and accounted for. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move approval.
Thank you, Manager Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Manager Sando. Voting on the agenda, Manager Maxwell.
Aye.
White votes aye. Olson.
Aye.
Loftus.
Aye.
Sando.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Hejmati.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Under consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes of the September 11th board meeting and approval of the check registers for general checking, surety checking, and wire transfers. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll take a motion for Manager Olson, second for Manager Miller. Voting on consent agenda, Manager Hejmati.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Sando.
Aye.
Loftus.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
White, aye. Maxwell.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. I don't have any meetings to report on for my report, but I do wanted to ask if anybody objects if we change the December 4 meeting to December 1, which would be the Monday of the week of Minnesota Watershed's annual meeting.
Works. If any,
What's the
Fine by
question?
me.
If we can change the December 4th meeting to December 1st, to Monday that week.
That'd be a Monday, yeah.
Yeah, we'll make that change then, thank you. The next item is the Planning and Policy Committee report, Manager Miller.
We had a excellent introduction and discussion of the formatting for the 10-year plan, and it was really great presentation. And there's a lot of work yet to be done, but I think we're off to a good start.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes.
could you humor me with a motion to approve the change of meeting date in December?
Sure. Would someone move to change the meeting date? Manager Olson, is there a second?
Second.
I'll take a second for Manager Loftus. Voting on changing the December meeting from 4 to 1, Manager Maxwell.
Aye.
White, aye. Olson.
Aye.
Loftus.
Aye.
Sando.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Hejmati.
Aye.
Great.
Yes.
I think I have the power, but that's a good idea to get it on paper. Manager Hejmati, do you have a report on the CAC meeting?
Yes. The the CAC meeting was held on September 17th, and the material that was presented to the CAC was essentially the same material that was presented in the meeting at 5:15 today. About water was used for development, and then that has created problems with flooding, and that we need to mimic nature systems in order to manage the flooding, judiciously combined with conveyance. And it was presented to the CAC, and they had a lot of feedback, a lot of questions as usual. They're very lively in the way they present, and the discussion was involving how to talk to the communities and how to send convincing messages, and the challenges and tensions involved, and that is most of the discussion. And so that was the content of the discussion.
Thank you, Manager Hejmati. Are there any other meetings or events managers would like to report about? The upcoming meeting and event schedule is listed, the previously noticed board and committee meetings, and in addition, on September 30th, there will be a Greenway to Cedar Trail Connection open house at St. Louis Park, a municipal building. And on October 1st at 9 a.m., there will be a special board meeting. On October 21st at 7 p.m. would be the Minnesota Metro Watersheds quarterly meeting. I cannot attend that meeting. Is someone else willing to be the liaison that night? Manager Olson?
I'm conducting the meeting, so.
You are. It's hard, though.
Oh. Can do both.
Okay, good. You got it then. I will put you down.
What day was it?
The 21st of October. And this is in person. Yes, in
Yeah.
person. Maybe only I find it difficult to chair and report. Under action item 11.1, we have resolution 25052. Ms. Christopher.
Thank you, President White, Board of Managers. So the Operations and Programs Committee 2 weeks ago, staff provided updates across a few areas of the watershed management, including framing a scope of work for consultant support, and tonight's station to release an RFP for that work. Keep the background very brief since we've been talking about a couple of committee meetings, but as the board knows, the plan is being positioned as a continuation of the policy direction set in the plan, with a focus on balanced urban approach. And the primary focus for the engagement process for the plan will be on the development of a flood management strategy, bringing forward this idea of integrated planning and turning the focus to the challenge of flood management. And in addition to this primary focus, other areas of work will include developing our next round of focal geography plans, including expanding into Painter Creek and Long Lake Creek, continuing to build out our land and water partnership program, emphasis on early engagement and planning, and then finally developing an evaluation framework to allow us to better assess our effectiveness. The primary focus of the engagement, stakeholder engagement process will be establishing a technical and policy advisory committee to guide the development of our integrated flood management strategy. And we envision this work moving through 4 phases, starting with discovery, where we'll align goals for the process, build shared understanding of existing flood risks, then moving into direction, where we will work to identify flood management goals and assess the application and trade-offs of different management strategies to help build resilience. And then in data analysis, we can test these strategies across a range of scenarios using the model and other tools to help us understand the implications and feasibility of these different strategies. And then finally, in decisions, we'll look to develop an implementation framework that can be integrated into our plan. So desired outcomes of this process at a high level are, as we discussed at length in committee, is we know we would like to promote storage and nature-based solutions where feasible, again, with an emphasis on integrated planning, inviting water back into the landscape in ways that can provide multiple benefits and be more sustainable in the long run. And so through this process, we aim to identify priority areas for storage, strategies, and opportunities to integrate those back into the landscape. And also knowing that there are real barriers to storage built-out areas, to assess the use of conveyance and where that may be appropriate and those different approaches. So kind of narrowing in more on the contract and the proposed scope of work that's in front of you. The way that we're looking to bring on a consultant team to support this work is essentially to help us understand current and future flood risks, help us understand the effectiveness and cumulative impact of these strategies when applied across the watershed scale, and then help us understand the scope of implementation that would be needed to meet the management goals that are set through the process. And then finally, helping us design a stakeholder engagement process that builds support for integrated planning. And so the scope of work that's in your packet is organized into 4 areas. And I'll go through just a bit more detail on what the work looks like in each of these buckets. So for the first is engagement and communications support. Knowing we have a strong internal outreach team that will be really helping to lead the engagement and facilitation planning. The role of the consultant would be primarily advisory support, helping to participate in planning sessions on engagement strategy, facilitation planning, and also helping to translate the technical information from the modeling exercises into clear, accessible messages and visuals. For flood risk assessment, we'll be looking for the consultant to help advise on precipitation scenarios that should be used, future land use assumptions, and then building out those scenarios and running the model to assess both current and future flood risk. And the third kind of bucket of work is evaluating management strategies. So again, through the engagement process, we'll be defining what strategies and scenarios we want to test. And the consultant will help build those, model them, assess the effectiveness, and impacts. Be a very iterative process, kind of back and forth with the engagement of our committees. And then kind of the final bucket is project management, which will include just kind of kickoff and discovery work, as well as regular coordination meetings to ensure integration across and between. So our goal is really to, in kind of bundling this work together, is to find a consultant team that can understand and support both the technical engagement work, since those will be so integrated, and really help essentially see the whole picture and act as an extension. So some of the things we're looking for in a consultant team, of course, is having experience in all the critical areas. So both the technical, modeling, scenario analysis work. Ideally, experience with our Stormwise model, if possible, and then also experience and expertise on the engagement community. And then we're also going to be looking for a team that has a really collaborative approach and will integrate effectively with our staff team, as well as creativity, bringing ideas to the table in terms of our goals for this. And then finally, we'll be looking for adaptability, knowing that we'll need to adjust and learn as we go through this 2-year engagement. We'll be looking through the process to pull in, the feedback of the consultants. All right, so the budget in the RFP is listed as a range of $150,000 to $170,000. This range is based on staff's estimates of the hours and rates for each of the work areas. Okay, the most kind of uncertain piece is the management strategies, just really heavily informed by the engagement process, but we've tried to estimate that as best we can. And the 2026 budget for plan support within the policy planning program is $217,000. This includes, some other areas of work like policy development and some other minor technical support areas. So the bulk of that budget is really intended to support the work outline. And this contract would also extend into 2017, including some of the scenario analysis and final report. So staff's evaluation, I think, will focus heavily on the team members, their roles, and also looking at the rates and kind of what areas, might need to scale or up or down depending on the number of scenarios. And so in terms of process, we're planning to hold informational meeting as well as interviews, and then targeting December meeting for contract award, which we'll modify to December 1st. And so, yeah, that'll have us kind of teed up to have that team on board to kind of support the process. So staff is requesting authorization to release the RFP for watershed management support. questions.
Thank you, Ms. Christopher. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Manager Maxwell, is there a second?
Second.
Manager Sando, questions for Ms. Christopher?
Do you have to move the date up from December 4th to December 1st?
Yes, I
On
will
there,
make
it
that
said
change.
December 4th.
Yep. That before we send out. Yeah, I think we'll probably look to distribute on Monday, so a few final edits.
When we sign contracts, is it all up front, or is there a payment process that you go through? Or is it 270 years contract?
No, Manager Maxwell, no, certainly not all up front. It would be generally on a monthly basis as
Okay, oh, I
invoices
don't
for
know if you do
work.
quarterly or what they do.
Manager Olson?
How many people will we send the RFP to?
We've got a list of about, I think, 35 or so kind of engineering firms. We're going to be, tomorrow coordinating with Mike and others on the team just to make sure we're not missing anybody.
Okay.
A good distribution. So, yeah, I think we try to maintain that and make sure that we're always adding to that as we come across new.
Thank you.
General information question. You've attached 3 exhibits to the request. How often do contractors or potential proposers ask you for additional information beyond the interview, beyond those 3 documents? Do they want data? Do you want to look at anything?
That's a good question. I'm not super experienced with running a lot of RFPs, so maybe let Mike speak to it. But we are planning to provide the opportunity for people to ask questions, and then we make sure that any information provided goes out to all those who are on the list. And then we'll also be having a meeting, as I mentioned, where people ask questions in terms of requesting data or things like that. I guess.
Does that happen?
Not typically. I mean, the RFP that are full to the consultant. So it's pretty rare that we get.
Okay, thanks for satisfying my curiosity. Appreciate it. Anything else from Ms. Christopher? Manager Miller?
You're sending it out to engineering firms in the, I'm kind of at a loss about, communication skills and all that. Should there be a subsection for public information and, I just don't know exactly, but I'm thinking, if we got engineers just talking to the most uncomfortable people with this plan would be the engineers representing the cities. And I'm wondering if we're throwing the dogs in with the dogs. It just, I'm missing something. I just don't see.
Yeah, I can try to speak to that, Manager Miller. I think, a lot of the larger engineering, I said, we're sending it to a list of engineering firms, but I think a lot of these larger firms have teams that do specialize in communications and engagement.
Okay,
Or that they might,
that's fine.
a partner or a sub or something.
As long as we know that.
Yeah, I think there's probably landscape architects on there. We see a lot of teaming.
Okay.
So depending on the size of the firm, folks will bring in engagement specialists or planners. Some of the larger firms have a lot of that in shop. Sometimes they'll bring in like a boutique partner to kind of look more competitive.
I'm satisfied.
President White, I know Arun has his.
Oh, thank you. Manager Hajmati?
Yes, my question was, this, is the plan, what I'm hearing in the proposal is primarily for the TAC, for the folks in the TAC. Is there any thought of involving the community and the citizens so that they are informed and included, that triangulated relationship between us and the community and the cities? Is there any, how is that part of it going to be involved, talking to the people?
Yeah, great question, Manager Hejmati, and I skip over that, so I'm glad you brought it up. We did try to draft that section in a way that it's that the consultants team would be advising on kind of our overall stakeholder engagement process, and so that would include the TAC and PAC would certainly be a heavy focus to that, but I think we'd also be looking to leverage their expertise and advice on how to effectively engage the public as well. And our overall engagement plan currently includes, ideas of some things like open houses, maybe a survey. We're still not sure exactly what that looks like or what the best tactics will be. And so we've been having conversations about that just recently too. And I think we are also going to be looking for some of our other advisors to, John Henley and Tom Horner and Lewis and others to help kind of inform that broader public engagement strategy. So we're keeping that in mind.
So when we're asking for, when we're sending out the RFP, that is included in the RFP. Is that correct, Becky?
Yes. Yep. It's advising on kind of the overall engagement process.
With the public as well?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's what I needed to know.
Mr. Whisker?
President White and Becky, maybe I could speak to the recent conversation we had with Lewis and COSAR too. I mentioned that in committee, but we had a conversation around our plan, and a lot of the ensuing discussion turned towards how do we engage at a residential scale to create champions across our 29 communities for some of the concepts that we're discussing, knowing that we've got a population of about 300,000 and not committing to these, but we talked about 2 to 3 ideas, and we could be working with COSAR, we could get advice from the consultants through the RFP. So the implementation of the work and what the final strategy looks like is still in process, and will come through the RFP, but all these broader conversations. But we talked about leveraging the diverse perspectives around our 15 years worth of work in the Greenway, which really is emblematic of nature-based solutions, trying to get a better sense of the kind of qualitative data on the impacts that work has had in community and the stacked benefits. So that would be one idea of getting some focused engagement around an area where we've invested a lot. I think another area that we've talked about is bringing in Indigenous perspectives. I think Samantha touched on this in committee in her presentation, and that sort of ancestral wisdom around living with water and designing with nature, and how that complements engineering solutions. And then we know across the watershed, whether it's lake associations or water stewards across communities, there are people that are already engaged, environmental commissions, Lake Association membership, our Citizens Advisory Committee that are already champions for the district and the water and those approaches. And so we're starting to think, Manager Hejmati, about those audience segments and different strategies for how we can pull those voices into the plan to complement some of the more formal agency engagement that we're going to be doing with municipalities, Met Council, the state, at both the staff and policy level.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, then voting on adopting Resolution 25052, Manager Maxwell.
Aye.
White says aye. Olson.
Aye.
Loftus.
Aye.
Sando.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Hejmati.
Aye.
Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Ms. Christopher. We'll move now to Resolution 25053. Mr. McDermott Spees presenting.
Hello, President White, Board of Managers. I'm here tonight to seek approval of final design and authorization to solicit bids for maintenance work of the Twin Lakes Park Pond. For the board tonight, I will cover a brief background on pond maintenance, an overview of the design for the maintenance work, discuss some next steps, and provide a recommendation. As the board is aware, the district manages 26 stormwater ponds and generally plans to conduct sediment removals when they're about half full. The Twin Lakes Park Pond and the Nokomis Amelia Pond were both slated for this maintenance work in the winter of 2023-2024, but due to an unseasonably warm winter and added permitting hurdles at the Amelia Pond due to presence of Blandings turtles, the work was delayed and then the contract was ultimately back in August, the board approved a new contract with Stantec to separate the Twin Lakes Park Pond and the Nokomis Amelia Pond to continue moving this work forward. The maintenance plan currently proposed tracks very closely with the work intended to be done in the winter of 2023-24, with updates generally being around quantities of sediment to be removed. The plan does include increasing the pond's depth by a total of about 2 feet. This depth increases to lengthen the maintenance interval and provide cost savings. An estimated 3,870 cubic yards of material are to be removed from the pond. And then back in 2023, soil samples were taken and found that due to Diesel Range Organics, the sediments are contaminated and will need to be disposed of. For this project, there are some permits. As stormwater infrastructure, it doesn't require any district permits, but the city does require use of right-of-way permit. They manage the erosion control for this permit, and the city also has its own dewatering permit. These under our specs, these permits would be obtained by the contractor through coordination with and assistance staff. They will also need to obtain a pollution control agency, NPDES general permit, also obtained by the contractor. The engineers provided an opinion of probable cost for the 2025-2026 work of $368,885,000. Some next steps. Staff has been coordinating with the City of St. Louis Park, notifying that we're planning the work for this winter, and sought some input before we release the bid package. We will continue that coordination. Following approval, we will be providing our city partner the plans and specs so they can review those, though they are generally familiar with the project from when it was previously contracted. As we continue to move forward, we will continue to coordinate with the city as the project moves forward, working with them kind of around resident notifications and pre-construction. This project doesn't require a public meeting. Staff plan to issue postcard mailers to notify the residents of the coming work and post informational signs during the project. For the timeline for the work, we would plan to release the bid package starting tomorrow with a mandatory pre-bid meeting on site a couple weeks after that on October 8th. Closing the bidding period and opening bids on October 15th, and then coming back to the board on October 23rd for approval and award selection. And through November, we would work through contract finalization, and then the maintenance window would open in December. Likely work would begin in January. Hopefully done by the end. With this, staff recommends the approval of Resolution 25053 to approve final design of Twin Lake Park Pond maintenance and approval to solicit bids.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move approval.
Manager Miller, is there a second?
Second.
Manager Sando seconds. Any questions for Mr. McDermott Spees?
How big is the wetland complex there?
The
pond?
total footprint of the pond is 1.2 acres, about.
But isn't the pond in a bigger wetland?
It's the headwaters for an additional wetland area. I don't have the exact acreage, but that kind of bleeds down into not too far away, drains north into Twin Lakes Park or Twin Lakes.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, then voting to adopt the resolution. Manager Hijmati,
Aye.
Manager Miller,
Aye.
Manager Sando,
Aye.
Manager Loftus,
Aye.
Manager Olson,
Aye.
Manager White, aye. Manager Maxwell,
Aye.
you. Thank you very much. We'll now move to a board discussion item under 12.1, the Greenway to Cedar Trail connection and stream bank restoration, 60%. Mr. Sherman.
Good evening, President White, Board of Managers. I'm here this evening with a quick update on 60% design for the Cedar to Greenway Trail connection. There haven't really been significant changes since I brought this to the board at 30%. So it'll be a relatively quick update, but certainly happy to take anything on question. I'll largely sort of focus on any changes that we have made between 30% and 60%. Quick reminder of the exact location of the project, which will be connecting the very terminus of the trail at the Minnehaha Preserve underneath the 3 bridges for regional trail, freight, and light rail over to Cedar Lake Regional Trail right by the road. Just a quick snapshot of where we're at in the scoped design process. We're running the typical 30-60-90 process, and we are currently have completed 60% drawings. So back final design. This is just kind of the overview of where we were at with 30%, and a quick reminder, between feasibility and 30%, we really focused on selecting a single trail alignment. Feasibility had looked at 2 different options, but due to the constraints of the professional instruments parking lot, we were able to settle on 1 alignment to carry forward into 60%. Where that landed in just a moment. The other kind of switch was we had kind of had a general sense of doing stream bank restoration, and between 30 and 60%, we've narrowed that down to the specific areas that we know we need to really focus on for stabilization. So this is 60%. Again, you're not going to notice a whole lot of difference, just really more detail added. I will point out we modified the alignment slightly. Let me get to bring the trail a little bit more through the trees here rather than swinging all the way around. We also, hard to see in great detail here, but we work closely with the city to figure out the pedestrian and bike crossing across Meadowbrook, and also we're able to design ADA landings that allow people to connect across Powell. So that was kind of a request from the city that we were able to accommodate in our design. Also, moving on from 30%, we were able to start modeling a little bit more of the impacts that the trail would or would not have on the creek, as well as add in some additional grading detail to figure out, again, where we needed additional stabilization. And so you'll see we kind of formalized a retaining wall just north of the bridges. We were able to keep that between our trail connection and the regional trail, so we're not pushing anything out kind of beyond the, on the other side of the trail. We're kind of keeping our footprint same size as the other area I want to call your attention to is down here, kind of just downstream of the bridges. This is an area that we've been monitoring kind of closely throughout design. This sort of curve that you see right here is where an old rail spur went, and we know in the creek right there are actually the old granite abutments from a bridge that spanned that area. And so water has sort of been scouring behind there and causing erosion where there's either PIC or the city has a bench out there. So we were able to kind of engineer, we needed some sort of vertical element here to kind of shore up where things had eroded between PIC's retaining wall and then the edge of the bank. And we really were trying to avoid putting in any sort of blocks or anything like that into the creek when we're doing a restoration. And so we were able to come up with basically a fabric encapsulated soil lift solution that incorporates live stakes in there. So as it kind of grows out, we have a bit of a naturalized retaining wall in this little section that will prevent future erosion and also allow the trail space it needs to. I do want to note right here, at 60%, it kind of looks like we're grading into the creek, which is not the case. It really will be a nearly vertical element, but kind of an artifact of how it's. And then the final thing that we had mentioned as a possibility, but it sounds like the city also would like to move forward with, is buckthorn removal along the rest of the length of the trail here. That'll help sort of open the area up, get more sunlight, and hopefully help some of the more beneficial species grow. Still working with the city on sort of long-term maintenance for that, but they're quite interested in doing an initial round of that to part of our. Last time I spoke with the board at 30%, we had nearly completed our phase 1 ESA, which is our environmental due diligence for this project. And a potential oil dump site had been flagged kind of right where our trail alignment was. And the recommendation was to follow up with the soil boring in that location to make sure that there weren't any elevated petroleum levels there. So between 30 and 60, we went out in the field and were able to conduct that soil boring, and thankfully, no levels above reference values were found. So that's kind of our clean bill of environmental health for the project.
It's right where that elbow is.
Yes, exactly, in that green green area.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's across the creek from the Merit Gauge
Yep.
factory. What do you mean by a oil dump site?
They had indications based on records that, I guess that site, even though it was across the creek, was used for storing extra oil or something like that, and some of it had spilled at some point. So either it may not have turned out to be in that exact location, or it's just the amount of it was small enough that it wasn't. This whole area was sort of used for various chemical storage.
Do we have to get some kind of an easement from the property owner with the parking lot, or we avoid that?
Manager Miller, yeah, I'll discuss that when we kind of get to the agreement that you're. Permitting, sort of have this same list as at 30% of which permits we're tracking. At 60% is really when we can start reaching out to other agencies to run our project by from a permitting standpoint. We have enough detail at this stage. We have completed wetland delineations, and no wetlands are present on the site. And that's actually undergoing our internal review right now. And if partners wish to weigh in on concurrence, I would be happy. Weeks certainly during this growing season. But we'll start this the permitting process in the next couple of weeks after we have a chance to meet with our city and other agency partners to make sure that they're comfortable with 60% design. Quick update on the cost estimate. Bottom line, between 30 and 60%, we're actually tracking a lower total project cost. We had a cost estimate closer to $890,000 at 30%, and we're now looking at closer to $700,000. So really that's a function of a couple of things. One, we're shrinking up contingency as we get more certainty as to design. So going from 30% contingencies down to 20%. And we were also, recall previously our alternate was sort of a full kind of carrying a budget for potential stream bank restoration. That was a little unknown at the time. We've now rolled that into the base bid because, again, we know where those areas of erosion are occurring, and it's not along the entire length. So those costs have shrunk. A few uncertainties are still baked into that total base cost. One is the potential need for railroad flaggers during construction. We'll find out if we do need that as we kind of get our agreement with Metro Transit figured out. You'll recall there's also some riprap underneath the bridges that needs to be removed. We'll have to wait to see how bids actually come in on that, but we're carrying, a pretty healthy estimate. Again, buckthorn removal is kind of a moving target until we get out on site and see exactly where the pockets are. I'll be answering Manager Miller's question here as part of sort of a discussion around agreements. I provided an overview of all the different partners in the past, so certainly if there's questions, I can go over any of that, but just wanted to provide a brief update. With City of St. Louis Park, we have 2 agreements that are kind of being worked through right now. One is a 2-party with us in the city. That's kind of looking at funding arrangements, construction coordination, that sort of thing. The other is a 3-party arrangement that also includes Professional Instruments Company. And that's where we're kind of detailing the process to convey that small portion of property that our trail runs over between. It's a small area, and Professional Instruments remains supportive of it. I spoke with them recently, and they said that their employees are pretty excited to start riding this trail connection to work. So I think they'd like to see it go through, and they're open to whatever mechanism works best for the 3 parties to get that recorded. Working with Metropolitan Council as the owner of the corridor, we had sort of been working with boilerplate agreements previously that were a bit onerous for all parties involved. So they've agreed to kind of go back to the drawing board and make a more streamlined document. The terms should be a lot more straightforward, but it is going through all their internal review right now with Freight Rail as well. 3 Rivers is a simple access permit to tie into their regional trail that can be obtained much closer to construction, and they're very supportive of the project and have no concerns with that. And as I mentioned, Professional Instruments, we no longer have to have a separate agreement with them. That'll be part of the 3-party agreement. I did want to provide also a quick update on the status of the private residences. I know actually between 30% and 60%, I was in front of the board with some discussion on particularly 7837 Edgebrook Drive, the Lindgren Sullivan property. We had explored various options of acquiring the property or some portion of it outright, easement or agreement. But we're unable to come to terms on an acquisition, and really the owners at this time are not interested in encumbering the property with any sort of easement or agreement as they consider marketing it in potentially the near future. So we've spoken more with the city about this. The city is also not interested in losing housing stock in this area. So they mentioned, they obviously run into this sort of situation a lot with their road projects, utility projects. And they often approach, needing some access or some amount of grading through a simple right of entry agreement or letter. So that's something that we're working through at the city right now to see, what the preferred approach for bringing the trail kind of against the back of that property line there.
Can you go back to that?
Yes.
At 3892, the public ownership goes to the surrounding street. Is there any way, I suppose it's too late now for it, but that'd be a nice way for the neighborhood to get into that trail rather than going all the way back to Blake Road. But,
and so I'm trying to, you said
3892.
Upper left, yeah.
Yeah, it's, no, blue.
Oh, yep, yes, I see right there. Yep.
It's they got a,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah, that'd be kind of cool to have a, but I suppose it's too late for that.
And it's also across the creek. Yes. Yeah.
Creek's not, but there is.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Yeah, this Edgerook part. Both of those are a little bit off of there, but yes.
Oh, there is a trail coming from the east, or west, east?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, they can
great.
get in that way.
Okay.
Exactly. So yeah, so once our trail connection is there, there's actually, yeah, you can approach the regional trail from both directions. So
Okay,
it's
terrific.
connecting all the directions. So as part of 60% design, this is also, as you're aware, when we're holding our main community meeting for the project. That'll be next Tuesday, September 30th, at the City Municipal Services Center. We've coordinated closely with the city, and they've been quite helpful in obtaining a space for that meeting, and they'll be present as well with staff to answer questions about the project, and if attending has other questions more generally about the city's approach to trails and all of that. So that should be a good event, and we'll really use this time now between 60 and 90% to work on these project agreements that are all in some form of drafting, but we'll need to just try to get those finalized, hopefully on a similar schedule to complete 100%, which is when we would really be back before the board to get authorization to bid. We'd be looking at getting final design sometime late fall, early winter for a bid in the winter, and construction when it's sort of suitable in 2020. Like I said, it's a brief update because not too much has changed, but certainly happy to take any questions if the board has any.
Manager Olson?
The bridge abutment, what happened to the abutment on the other side of the creek? Was that removed?
Manager, are you referring to the historic abutment that I was talking about?
Right.
That's a good question, and perhaps actually Mike might have a little more information. This whole section actually does have a lot of, if you know, we've actually recently paddled the creek as staff, and there's just large granite blocks, kind of a whole, you know, in this whole stretch, and so sometimes it's a little bit hard to tell, at least the naked eye, what's an old abutment, what was, you know, maybe a retaining wall or something that's fallen into the creek.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if
We're not.
if Mike has any more.
The abutments don't exist there anymore, but the sort of all along. What appears to be abutments were likely the tracks were removed, there was riprap, or they were replaced. We've had all sorts of historians as to whether there was a mill in this location, or if it was down on the Excelsior Boulevard near Methodist Hospital. And some have pointed to this old rail spur being the reason, although some of the same as Park Historical Society as the main reason for it existed. But the abutments themselves are gone. Wasn't shaped appropriately.
Yeah, because some of those big chunks of granite actually have a polished surface in some of them, and so it looks like they were, you know, broken up remnants of a wall or something that was. Is it pretty rough?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been there a long time. Trees growing
Yeah.
around. Full.
And we're letting it remain, those.
Yeah.
Where the abutment is, there'll be the new gas. We need to move some of that area. One of the, I would say, it's one of the most beautiful really nice, what appears to be or within south.
Yep. Good.
I just want to comment, the notice with all the accompanying information is really well done. There's no question you'd have at all after reading that, and it's really good work.
Management for the public meeting.
Yeah.
And I would just want to give recognition to the outreach team, all their work on
That went out pretty broadly, right?
Yes. Yeah, we've been working. I mean, we had all of our sort of traditional, the buffer that we use around the project site, but then we have a large email distribution list that has sort of been put together for the sub-watershed, and we continue to add to that. So we've gone out pretty widely. I should just, I will note, some of our partners at least are quite excited. The agencies that have regional trail as part of their mandates, Three Rivers and at council, they express that if we tag them in their social media, that they would then distribute on further. So they have quite an interest in seeing this trail connection done as well. And so, the outreach team always does a great job, but I know kind of had the idea that this would be distributed maybe even beyond who we directly send.
I think that included the relevant council members, county board, council, others. And then, Gabe, maybe you want to plug your on-site appearance as part of wasn't there some regional trail programming that you actually showed up for? And
Sure, yes, I went from the staff paddle immediately to outside staff bike ride, which it was organized through Met Council. I think it might be part of an ongoing series, but we got plugged in through St. Louis Park. And really highlighting sort of all the regional trail connections that Met Council doesn't directly build, but they help fund and support. And so it actually started down at the Kenilworth Tunnel, which I was not able to make it to, but then they biked up the Cedar Regional Trail to downtown Hopkins. And along the way, stopped and talked mostly about how light rail was put in to accommodate some of regional trails, but we stopped over Minnehaha Creek, and I was able to explain. There's probably about 25 different agency people there who have some role in regional trails, and kind of explain the purpose of our connection, broader impacts of that, and got a really positive response. And they particularly noted that it was amazing that we had brought together this many different groups, whether or not it was funding through Hennepin County or the city, to create this connection, and that the planning had gone back over a decade to make sure that we had this. So it was very well received, and people are excited.
So you paddled first, then you biked. If you ran, then you'd have your own watershed Ironman.
Yeah.
we were joking about that because I think the regional trail people really pride themselves on sort of being bikers and multimodal. And I said, Gabe, you're going to be the only person to arrive by canoe. I mean, that's, they all showed up on bikes. And it's like, how pedestrian.
With a birch bark.
I don't know if I should admit on record how sore I was the next day.
I think Arun has a question.
Yeah, Gabe, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I noticed that you have a very large list of external permits that you need to get. Do you anticipate any difficulties with that?
I should note a couple of these are potentials. We just kind of went a little broad on this just so that we were giving a full sense of what we might need to obtain. I think some of the things that we were tracking early, we've been able to mitigate a little bit. I think we have some more modeling to do to make sure that all of our no-rise is met and all that. But I think as we've kind of gotten more certainty around our grading and being able to solve some of these issues through the use of sort of a naturalistic retaining wall, some of those concerns I think we've kind of been able to work through. I don't have any major concerns at this point. I think the idea would be to get feelers out as soon as possible now that we're at 60%, so that if there are any concerns, we have some time to work through it before we're getting to 90%. So no major concerns at this point, and we've been working closely with our permitting group to do a screening at every stage. So we've done permit screening at feasibility, again at 30%, and then now that we have 60% designs, we'll do an internal screening again. No particular
good.
concerns. But.
Yeah. Certainly don't want to come up against something when we're putting together the 90% and have to go back and change stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good.
Anything else for Mr. Sherman?
Is St. Louis Park with the parcel mark 7750, is that theirs?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Exciting to see it go far this far.
Yes. Thank you.
Are there any board inquiries, issues, or ideas to flag this evening?
No, they get
Why
ignored
did they look
anyhow.
at him? Oh, what'd you say?
They get ignored anyhow.
Oh. I'll bring the list back at the next meeting so we can do an accountability check.
Okay, then, your report, Mr. Whisker. Pardon me.
Thank you, President White. Managers, this is probably a little bit redundant at this point, but top of my list is just a reminder of the community meeting that Gabe just plugged. So it is September 30th, 6:30 to 8 p.m., the Public Works Building, our Municipal Service Centers building in St. Louis Park. And I think Gabe's covered who's going to be there, who's been notified, and that's going to be a basic open house format. And I think we've already got attendance locked in from the board, so I don't need full attendance this evening. Outreach has provided a copy of the final budget and levy work plan. This has been distributed today following the board's adoption and certification, so that's gone out pretty far and wide. You'll remember it's got some pull quotes in there from different community leaders and partners across the watershed, both upper and lower, and that went out to county boards, city councils, staff, city managers, partners, and our other general distribution list. So hopefully they find that engaging. With regards to the boardwalk, I'd given an update at the last meeting, and I just want to keep the information flowing here. Granite Ray, the bond company, still finalizing their forensic engineering report. And I've informed the board before that they've selected their option under the bond contract number 4 to do this inspection and then tender payment. And we've dialogued with the board around what we anticipate is going to be some level of likely negotiation or back and forth there. I previously reported that the staff team, working alongside with Smith Partners and then SRF, our design engineer, that we were moving into exploring how we would move the bids forward so that we could get market-driven prices, but as well move the repairs and forward this winter. Specifically, we'd had a conversation across that team about considering best value rather than low sealed bid, so that we can ensure the repair contractor really has their eyes wide open and that they would be asked to put together some documentation on their approach. Since there's maybe a couple of different approaches that might require railing, tow rail to be removed, really make sure that we understand their approach and how they're coordinating that with the city as part of the bid. Doing that, I think I'd indicated, would require us to advance a scope of work with SRF, a new contractor contract amendment for bid support. As a reminder, SRF, to get us to this point, following the initial construction completion, they've accumulated $70,000 so far in unbilled services and unpaid services. I think leadership's viewing this as a break point where, while they're reserving their rights on that $70,000, they want to get under contract for moving us into bid. So that's something that we might have to bring forward in front of the board. I'd planned on doing that in October and explaining all that, but we've sat down, we've looked at the bid windows, the process that would be required for best value. We've got new information on lead time for timber for the East Auburn project, which is on the order of months. And then what would be left as a remaining construction window, knowing that the repairs are going to be time intensive and have to occur in the winter. And I think the general consensus of the team, despite all of our ambition to sprint on that, is there isn't really enough time to take the thoughtful approach. We need to get this done right forever. So that said, we're still moving forward essentially on the same schedule of preparing scope to move towards bids. But the idea is that we'd be then bidding maybe late spring, getting under contract in summer, and providing ample lead time for the timber, and then the longest possible winter construction window, which would be 26, 27. So that's sort of the latest update, and I think the next time you're going to hear from me, I'll be in front of the board talking about the preparation of a bid package for the repairs. So I know that's maybe a bit to digest. We've tried to keep the information punctuated at the last several board meetings, but let me know if you have any questions now or if you want to chat about it offline too.
I wonder what it would take to switch from SRF to somebody else on this portion.
Yep.
Just something to think about.
Yeah, we've thought about that deeply. And I can bring back a perspective on that. We can talk about it offline. I think briefly, Manager Loftus, one of the things that we've talked about is setting aside the field staff and the construction oversight through the reconstruction. The design team's been extremely responsive and pretty great to work with. And it's our perception that moving forward with their familiarity and the warranty and some of the other things, moving forward with them is probably the most efficient than getting in yet another chef into the kitchen to then take SRF's design, get them all the way up to speed on the 11 areas of defective work, and then prepare a best value bid that then they have to evaluate and oversee that stems from SRF's original design for the construction with another contractor. But we spent a lot of time talking about that internally. I know SRF knows that we've talked about that. I think we can talk about that openly, and happy to take input, but sort of a summary level, we're seeing that as not just, it's not just the simplest or easiest path forward, but probably the best. Any other questions on that?
Manager Sandra, do you have a question? Okay.
I'm glad to see that you're taking a very thoughtful and careful approach on this, James, and wanting to get it done and get it done right.
Yeah, I think disappointment's the word, that we're not going to be positioned to actually finish the reconstruction this winter, but
that's okay.
Bit of a slog, and we'll just keep slogging.
Yeah, we need to get it done right. It's been too long.
Yeah, I think Manager Loftus has said, and Mike and I feel the same way, that when we get into the site for the reconstruction, we're going to be burning sage and whatever,
Yes.
whatever it takes, because this is the last time that we're going to put this together.
Yes.
You can smoke
Do the dance.
cattail, I've heard.
Yeah, okay. Wasn't quite sure where you were going.
Yeah, it's like,
It might get us into more trouble
Yeah.
with the
Sorry about
repairs.
that.
I think President White, you've mentioned, Louis, did you have something on that? You might have mentioned this, but just as a reminder, we're going to have a special meeting next Wednesday, October 1st here, 9 to 11, to discuss the results of mediation stemming from the Lattice litigation. Board's been polled. I think everybody can make it. Since then, Manager Miller did let me know he's got an unavoidable conflict that came up, and unfortunately we'll miss his presence. But yeah, we've got that meeting next Wednesday. Moving on, we had the City of Wayzata, their city manager recently left. I think Jeff Dahl went to Woodbury, is that right? And they've promoted Mike Kelly, the city engineer, longtime watershed partner, to interim. And Mike reached out to us and has asked if, because of some of his capacity limitations given their staffing, if we'd be willing to take a regulatory role, assume the regulatory authority over a proposed MnDOT project for 394 lane improvements that would span between Wayzata and Minnetonka. Veronica's evaluated our capacity. She's chatted with Chuck, legal counsel, and unless the board objects, it seems like the partner thing to do. We'll keep them informed. We'll work through a simple joint powers agreement like we do when we have these authority switcheroos, and I think Mike Wood and the YZ team will really appreciate that. So they have our regulatory authority. This is an instance where they'd like us to take it back momentarily and permit the MnDOT project.
That's a big jump from Wayzata to Woodbury.
Woodbury.
The city manager, left YZ, and I think it's Woodbury.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I'm talking about the MnDOT project.
Oh, yeah. The road doesn't go from YZ to
No,
the
394.
One way.
city manager did.
Doesn't go to Woodbury.
And then,
Well, it changes to 94.
speaking
It goes to
of-
Woodbury, yeah.
speaking of engineers, city engineers, district engineers, Eric Migaw's not here tonight. He was the recently appointed district engineer. But I want to let the board know that I learned just yesterday Eric's going to be unfortunately leaving Stantec, and he's going to be joining the EOR team. His last day is next Friday, so you're probably not going to get to see him. But we get the joy of Nick's familiar face. He's been a constant force and is going to remain the face of Stantec for the board and staff as we move things forward. That's what I have for the administrator's report.
Wonderful. The next item is going to be closed session, so I'll just pause for a moment and let staff leave who aren't required.
We're gonna have to close the boardwalk into the winter. Okay, I didn't,
Official opinion from. I guess I can answer it. Manager Maxwell had asked, are we going to close the boardwalk in the winter? And I think the likely answer is no. We've got, I think, existing opinions on record from SRF about the current safety of the boardwalk being suitable for public use. All of our concerns relate regarding the deficient construction to longevity. So I think we'll be okay this winter.
That's what I was thinking about safety. Sorry about that.
I suppose that was that a thing,
What was that a thing?
that their engineer had to do it.
Oh, maybe.
Mr. Heyman.
Good evening, Madam Chair, managers. We are here tonight to continue the discussion regarding the potential acquisition of 6300 Painter Road, which is along Painter Creek in the city of Minnetrista. The property is being assessed for its potential as a future capital project implementation site in the forthcoming focal geography of Painter Creek Jennings Bay subwatershed. And given the nature of the discussion this evening, I will look to District Council Lewis Smith to guide the board into close.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Madam President, we'd recommend the board adopt a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing potential terms of acquiring 6300 Painter Road in Minnetrista.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Manager Miller moves. Is there a second? Manager Olson seconds. Voting then by roll call to go into closed session. Manager Maxwell?
Aye.
White, aye. Olson?
Aye.
Loftus?
Aye.
Sando?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Edgemati?
Aye.
Thank you. We are in open session. The meeting is adjourned.